What if the American Revolution had completely failed? What if, instead of triumph and independence, the colonies remained under British rule? Picture a world where the ideals of freedom, democracy, and self-governance were never realized. What would America look like today? Let's consider the implications of a continued British presence in the colonies. The revolution was driven by the desire for autonomy and the rejection of oppressive governance. The Founding Fathers rallied the people with powerful rhetoric about liberty and rights. But what if that movement had fizzled out? What if the colonists never gained the momentum needed to win their independence? In this alternate history, we start in 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was penned. But imagine that the Continental Army, led by George Washington, faced devastating losses at key battles like Bunker Hill and Saratoga. Instead of becoming a symbol of hope, these defeats crushed the spirits of the revolutionaries. Fractured and demoralized, the colonies become easy targets for the British forces. With British reinforcements pouring in and loyalists rallying to the crown, the colonies see a reversal of fortunes. Major cities like Boston, Philadelphia, and New York fall into British hands permanently. The dream of self-governance slips further away as Parliament tightens its grip, enforcing stricter laws and taxes, leading to widespread unrest and discontent. In this scenario, the Continental Congress becomes a puppet of British interests. The call for independence is silenced, and any voices of dissent are swiftly quelled. Colonists who once envisioned a free nation find themselves under the harsh rule of British authorities. The ideals of democracy and individual rights become relics of a lost dream. As time passes, the effects of this failure ripple across the continent. The American colonies remain dependent on Britain, both economically and politically. The colonies serve as mere extensions of the British Empire, contributing to its wealth while suppressing the aspirations of their own people. Imagine the frustration of those who long for change but are met with brutal repression. This continued rule stifles innovation and progress. Without the competitive spirit ignited by independence, industrial growth lags behind that of other nations. The invention of crucial technologies that drive economies forward, like the steam engine, may be delayed or never realized at all. Without the American Revolution, what does the landscape of North America look like? We can envision the continent largely dominated by colonial powers. Britain maintains its grip on the eastern seaboard, while France and Spain vie for control of the West. The borders we know today are drawn differently. Territories become battlegrounds between European powers instead of independent states. In this altered world, Native American tribes face a different set of challenges. Rather than dealing with the aftermath of American expansion, they encounter the complexities of European politics. British treaties and land agreements continue to shift, but without a strong American presence, tribes find themselves navigating a landscape filled with uncertainty and betrayal. Now, think about the impact on American identity. The notion of being American evolves differently in this scenario. Without a revolutionary struggle, the identity of the colonies remains tied to their British roots. Loyalty to the crown persists, and the idea of individual rights is overshadowed by the monarchy's dictates. As decades pass, a new generation grows up under British rule. They are educated in a system that promotes loyalty to the crown rather than the spirit of independence. The teachings of history focus on the greatness of the British Empire rather than the ideals of freedom and self-determination. The fire of rebellion is extinguished, replaced by a loyalty that binds them to their distant rulers. In the early 1800s, a new wave of political thought emerges, but without the context of the revolution, ideas like republicanism and democracy struggle to gain traction. Revolutions sweep through Europe, but the American colonies remain stagnant, clinging to the remnants of a failing empire. Fast forward to the mid-19th century. Without an independent America, the question of slavery and civil rights takes a different course. The abolition movement faces significant challenges as British interests maintain control over the colonies. While Britain itself eventually abolishes slavery in 1833, the colonies remain resistant to change, as they continue to prioritize economic ties to the British Empire over moral imperatives. The absence of the American Revolution also affects the global landscape. As European nations experience revolutions and the rise of national identities, the American colonies remain a curiosity rather than a source of inspiration. The ideas of liberty and democracy that spread like wildfire across Europe are hindered by the colonies' continued loyalty to Britain. The question arises, What about the other regions of the world? If America never declared independence, the ripple effects are immense. Other colonies in the Americas, inspired by a successful American Revolution, might never rise up against their colonial powers. The concept of a new world defined by democratic ideals is lost, and the influence of revolutionary thought becomes muted. Without a successful American Revolution, the War of 1812 never occurs. The U.S. expansion westward is significantly stunted, and key events like the Louisiana Purchase are fundamentally altered. The balance of power shifts and territorial disputes with Mexico and Canada take on a different character. As we reach the end of the 19th century, the lack of American independence leads to a different global order. The U.S. does not emerge as a world power, and the Industrial Revolution takes a slower path. The global balance of power remains concentrated among European nations, delaying technological advancements and economic growth in North America. In this alternate timeline, the rise of the United States as a superpower never materializes. The absence of a strong, independent America means that its influence on global politics, culture, and economics is non-existent. Ultimately, the narrative of freedom, independence, and democracy that shaped the identity of a nation is replaced with one of submission, loyalty, and stagnation. The American dream becomes an unattainable fantasy, a whisper of what could have been. Reflecting on this alternate history, we see how the success of the American Revolution was more than just a struggle for independence. It was the birth of a nation that would inspire countless others. The implications of its failure remind us of the fragility of freedom and the sacrifices made to secure it. In conclusion, the American Revolution's triumph was pivotal not just for the colonies, but for the world. A complete failure of that revolution would mean an entirely different trajectory for humanity, a world where the ideals of democracy and freedom were stifled and where the American identity remained unformed. The lessons learned from this exploration of alternate history highlight the importance of struggle, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of liberty.